Hello and welcome back to the Regents pod. We are so excited to be back with our first episode of the year, and we have a very special guest, Dave Newton.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm really good actually. Not too bad. The sun is shining outside.
It is.
It's a nice
Yeah,
day.
so can't complain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good.
Very exciting. It's great to have you here. And so you are the principal of Regents.
Yeah, my official title is Principal of Regents Theological College and Director of Training for the Elim Pentecostal Movement. So imagine trying to get that on a business card.
Yeah.
That kind of takes a bit of work.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
I tend to switch for one or the other. But
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
Nice. So what exactly does that entail with your...
Yeah, that's a good question, James. So Elim has about 550 churches around the UK. And my role is kind of training people for ministry. So those who are coming into ministry initially, or those who are in ministry but need to kind of upskill and kind of that CPD, kind of continued professional development side of things. And then it's also the strategic leadership of the college. So the college has about 220 students, and I kind of oversee not necessarily the day-to-day running, but the direction of where the college is going.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what I do as a day job.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
And is that something that you really enjoy, or how do you kind of feel like, how did you get into doing that?
Yeah, do you know, it's a really good question, because I don't think you kind of, when you're chatting to your brother and he's saying, what do you want to do when you grow up, kind of thing, I'm not sure that principal of a college is the first thing that comes to mind. I got this desire to, my phrase is pour fuel on people's fire. So if somebody is kind of burning with a dream, or God's put something on their heart, or there's a bit of a kingdom idea, how could I play a part to increase the temperature? So I feel that the role that I'm in is kind of an equipping role, where I get to kind of help people maybe achieve their potential, or even imagine what their potential could be. So I feel that's kind of the heart that God's put within me, and this is a really good place to exercise, if you like, that kind of gift or that thing. Yeah. So how I ended up here, I applied for the job and got it. But I've always been part of an Elim church since kind of probably 20 years now. And I wasn't an Elim minister actually till later on in life. So I never considered myself as a pastoral minister, kind of leading a church. But obviously we could go into this if you want. The ministry is a lot broader, if you like, than just kind of local church leadership. And
yeah, definitely.
I got ordained about 9 years ago now. So
Wow, amazing. Yeah, so you do lectures as well. Is there a specific area where you enjoy lecturing on, like a topic?
Yeah, so I've got one, I'm trusted with one module, which is my very own, which is good. Okay. You don't get it till level 6, so the third year, and it's kind of church and mission. Nice. So my theological education is in missiology, so understanding God on mission and the part that we play in God's mission. So that's my kind of module that I get to teach on, but then lecturers will bring me in to kind of, if you like, guest lecture or have input in others. Yeah. So I tend to speak in youth ministry because that's my background. I tend to speak on kind of leadership stuff as well, but predominantly kind of mission and missiology. Yeah. Sounds very grand, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Very exciting.
Inspiring.
I'm looking forward to that module.
I'll have to say, I'll be disappointed, boys, if you don't sign up to it. So, yeah.
Is it one that is optional, or do we have to take it?
It's level 6. There's only one optional module.
Oh, really?
So there's only one core module. Everything else is optional.
Right.
So you don't have to take it.
No.
But I'll be making
We
notes
have
if you
to
don't.
now. Yeah, we have to now.
You have to now. Yeah. Exactly.
How long have you been at Regents for?
Yeah, so 2015, January 2015 I started. So Pete Reed, who's currently here, was the acting principal, and he carried on as acting principal for that academic year. And then June of 2015, I was officially made the principal of the college. But I've been in post, it will be 9 years actually in January. So feels quite a long time, but it feels like a blink of the eye at the same time.
Right. Yeah, very exciting. Yeah. And in that time, do you have like a favourite memory from Regents, or something that's stood out to you over that time? A significant event?
Yeah, favourite memory. I was privileged to join at a time. So it sounds really grand. Every 5 years we do the quinquennial review. But basically means like we have to go back to the university that we are affiliated to and review the courses, look at what's going well, look at what needs to be changed. And so I joined 2015, and 2016 late was this quinquennial review. So what was good is it allowed me to kind of come into role and almost reimagine what Regents could look like. I think when I joined, we were very heavily dominated by residential, what we call campus-based learning. So in order to study here, you had to come and live on site. Some people love living in West Malvern. Some people are kind of going, oh, I prefer to live somewhere else, or I've got a house in London or whatever else.
Yeah.
So it allowed us to reimagine how we did training, but also allowed us to really make sure that what we taught was relevant to the world. I think there's an understanding sometimes when people think of that word theology, and it sounds a little bit like we're debating things that aren't really important to the real world.
Sure.
And I wanted to make sure that our understanding of God, our theology, made sense in life. And so I had the privilege of being able to do some of that work, or at least lead on some of that work with the fantastic team that's here. So does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. And like speaking of London, Regents has just announced a new campus on London.
Well, I mean, this is like kind of latest news. Because just last week was our very first teaching week in London. We're starting with a very short, non-accredited course in Christian leadership and discipleship, and it's every Tuesday evening. We've got 40 students on our first module looking at spiritual formation, which basically means what's it like to be a Jesus follower. And we'll be teaching 6 blocks of 5 weeks over this year. Really, really excited. And so, Notting Hill, central London. If you want to sign up and be part of Regents, then you're very, very welcome to join us.
What are the main sort of differences between that campus and this campus? How are they different?
Okay, well, that's a really good question. In London, we're operating out of a church building. So there's no kind of residential accommodation. You know, you just come in for the teaching and then carry on with everyday life. We're looking at how we teach and maybe some of the structures next year as well. So whereas here we have these kind of focused teaching weeks because people are living on site, we're wondering about maybe doing something kind of on Monday evenings, so it can work with someone who's working part-time or even working full-time. And can be flexible in shift patterns. So we're conscious 8 million people live in London, and we need to kind of be where people are, really.
40 down.
Yeah, 40 down. Only 7 million, however many to go. That's good.
James and I were speaking the other day. We had a little idea about Regents Pod on tour.
Okay.
Why don't we go down to London for the day? Go and see the new campus.
You could do.
Do a little podcast down there.
Yeah. Film the area, get a nice coffee while you're down there.
Maybe. What could be?
Yeah. You could go down to the Notting Hill Festival and you could get loads of stuff.
Exactly.
Living the life. Wow, perfect. Well, do you think it's time for our segment, our little fun activity segment that we like to do called Lists and Twists? And so, Dave, we will ask you to list five things from a topic, and then we'll throw in a twist, which will change it up a bit.
Okay.
And so we would like you to list your top 5 favourite sports.
Wow.
We'll start with that.
5 favourite sports. Okay, football has to be in there. Football. Table tennis is going to be on that list. Paddleboarding. Is paddleboarding a sport or an activity?
Oh, I don't know. I'll give it to you as a sport. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll allow it.
Tennis. More to watch than to play. And do you know what? I'm going to throw a curveball in there because when it comes to the Olympics, I will literally watch any sport.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to go curling.
Wow.
I've never done it, but I kind of like the idea of it.
A bit fun.
Yeah, so a bit of curling on the ice.
Oh, cool.
Is that 5?
Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah, I think that is 5.
Okay.
It's a very interesting list. I wasn't expecting curling,
Yeah.
but we do have a twist,
Okay.
and that is, if you could, let's take football for example. You're number 1. If you could change a rule or add a rule to football, what would it be? What would you want to improve the game? How would you do that?
yeah, I think this would ruin the game, but it would be quite fun.
Yeah.
Where, you know, do you remember quite a number of years ago in the World Cup, they had like the golden goal. So the idea was in extra time, if a goal was scored in that half-hour period, like literally the game stopped.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I just imagine if there was like a mad 5 minutes in a game of football where if something happened in that mad 5 minutes, it was like a bonus thing, you know. So if you scored a goal in that 5 minute period, you got double goals, or you got. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of added some jeopardy or some kind of.
Quite exciting. Halfway through.
Yeah, or maybe the first 5 minutes in the second half.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If something happened and that's just kind of revived or brought a bit of life, that could be it would be chaos. But it could be quite fun. Or the other one is you could just pick a random member of the crowd who not had any play, and they were allowed to have 10 minutes on the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, like a wild card. That would be quite cool.
That would be quite fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So just the thought.
Very cool. We've heard rumours and whispers that you have a world record, that you're a world record holder. Would you like to share anything about that?
Whispers and rumours are true. Yeah, very true. In 2014, a few mates and myself set out on a task to break the world record for the longest ever five-a-side football match.
Right.
The record at the time, I think, was about 42 hours. So we went for 48 hours. Yeah. So we started at like 9 o'clock in the morning and played 48 hours non-stop. And the five-a-side match had to continue, but you were allowed to have 8 players on each team. So you were allowed to be subbed on and subbed off. So we did 3 hours play, an hour off, 3 hours play, an hour off. And that's kind of how it worked. Wow. It was brutal.
I can imagine.
I mean, honestly, you had to be on camera at all times because it had to be kind of proved to the Guinness World Record holders that we were there and we weren't swapping with people. And I think we were allowed a 10-minute shower at one point after 24 hours, and it was just crazy. Yeah, and the hardest thing was kind of balancing food and exercise and getting stiff. And it was in May, and so in the daytime it was actually quite warm, and then at night it went freezing cold, and you just kind of. So we achieved it, succeeded, got the world record, and then 6 weeks later, some Canadian girls beat it and knocked us out the park with 60 hours of continuous play.
Wow.
So
fair play to them.
Yeah. So credit to them. I wasn't going to keep going for 60 hours. So.
That's crazy.
Wow. Very impressive.
Yeah, but I've got the certificate on my wall. You can see it in my office. It is
That's
there.
cool.
I
That's a cool thing
achieved
to
it.
have.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
yeah.
Oh well, the majority of the podcasts that we do are often testimonial based, and like kind of get to know. Just if you're new tuning in, we like to get to know people that come and study at Regents, so you guys can see what Regents life is like. But also for the people who live here to try and get to know each other a little bit better. And often, you know, we study with each other and we live with each other, but actually how much do we actually know about each other? And this is just a really great time where we can just come to get to know you a little better and hear a little bit about your testimony and your Jesus story and things like that. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, no problem at all. So how far do you want me to go back?
As much as you would like.
Okay, cool. Well, interrupt and ask any questions as I go. Grew up in a Christian family. I feel like I lived in church when I was when I was born through my early years. It wouldn't be unusual for us to be in church 3 times on a Sunday, you know, there for every activity, morning, evening, all that kind of stuff. And so I knew about Jesus. It was kind of just everyday, ordinary. And then about 4 years old, must have been in a Sunday school class, I became aware of this concept of sin, selfishness, doing stuff the way that I wanted as opposed to the way God wanted. Yeah. And so my dad went to church on Easter Sunday evening and for some reason we didn't go. Maybe it had been a busy day. And I just said to my mum, I need to say sorry to Jesus for the stuff that I've done in my life. 4 years old. And so we knelt down on the kitchen floor, and I gave my life to Jesus. And I remember being really excited, so I needed to go and tell someone. And I thought I was the first person in my family who'd kind of given my life to Jesus. So I ran into the living room to kind of tell my older brother, about my newly found faith, and I was really disappointed because he goes, "Oh, I've been a Christian for years," and I thought I was going to be the evangelist who was going to lead them to Jesus, and he was already a Christian. So, then you kind of get into secondary school, and the reality starts to kick in. You know, you kind of, I owned my faith. But I realised I actually had to own it. You know, it wasn't something that was just going to happen naturally. So in my Spanish lesson, everyone knew I was a Christian. Everyone knew what my dad did for a job. And so they took my kind of vocabulary book, you know, where you write all your Spanish words in, and like graffitied it Newton's Bible. And my Spanish teacher was kind of a fairly... a skeptic, you know, atheistic skeptic, and he would ask questions of the Christian. We hardly did any Spanish, but he would ask questions. Why were there 153 fish in the? You know, I'm thinking I've got no idea. I'm 12 years old. But so I think my confidence grew in my faith because I was prepared to not only live up to what I believed, but maybe the questions that were asked of me, you know, kind of tested and gave me confidence. Then, a couple of years later, a number of the students in a college that was nearby where we were used to go out into the local town centre and like share their faith. They would do it in quite creative ways. It wasn't just shouting at people. And I thought, I'm going to give that a go. You know, so about 14, 15, I went out onto the streets into the town centre. And we used this thing called sketchboard evangelism. So you'd basically paint a picture on a piece of paper and talk about what you painted. Couldn't paint to save my life, but the guys asked me to have a go. So I'm busy kind of concentrating on my little painting, and I'm about to turn around and tell people about Jesus. And unbeknown to me as I'm painting, all of my classmates basically have formed an orderly, formed the crowd for me to about... And so I turned around and I was absolutely gutted and thinking, no, I've got to own my faith now. You know, I'm about to preach about Jesus. And so my story through my teenage years was given opportunity to have a go, to share my faith, and I grew in my faith. Don't really think there was a moment of crisis. You know, there wasn't a moment where I doubted it. It's kind of just grown and grown and grown. I've been in that privileged place. So fast forwarding, I got married quite young. I was about 21 when I got married, and married to Liz. And we've been married for 20-something years. There's loads more to that story, and you can ask me more about that. But that's the kind of initial how I became a Christian and started to grow in my faith.
Sure, that's really cool. Do you think that, I know we spoke earlier about your kind of role at Regents and how you were equipping others. Do you think that's kind of come from the background of having opportunities to become equipped?
Yeah, I notice as I reflect back that people gave me like ridiculous opportunities. I mean, in a good sense. So even little things like a Sunday evening, my dad used to have to pick the songs for Sunday. You know, what were the Sunday evening hymns going to be? And you know, he'd be sitting there at about 4:00 on a Sunday afternoon and says, not that he couldn't be bothered doing it, but he was just a bit tired. And he said, what song should we sing tonight, Dave? And I remember being about 8 or 9, you know, picking the songs that we were going to sing on a Sunday. Was that intentional discipleship? Was it that he couldn't be bothered, or was he giving me an opportunity to get involved? Sure. And I just found throughout my faith, people kept giving me ridiculous opportunities that were probably far beyond my years. And as I had a go, I stepped into those. I've read my first sermon back. It was rubbish. Would anyone want to listen to it? Probably not. But people were really positive and saw potential and kept kind of encouraging me along the way. So I think the short answer is probably yes.
Do you think that's inspired you to look to help other people and give other people opportunities as well?
I think the easy thing to do sometimes in our Christian faith is just get on with it ourselves. I think the greater calling is to do what God's given us to do, but to kind of help others to develop in the process. And so, you know, you have to give away control, and you have to let go, and you have to trust people if you're going to give responsibilities to others. And it might not be the way that you want it to be done, but does it really matter? You know, because at the end of the day, if somebody is growing and testing their own faith and developing their own skills, it's going to have a far greater impact than me doing a good job. You know?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, and I suppose that ties in with your kind of missional vision kind of thing that we were talking about earlier. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, from there, I got involved with an organisation called Youth for Christ. I was a schools worker, kind of a bit by default. So there was a local Wirral YFC centre, which was a charity, and they went in and did some schools work, and I just wanted to go and do schools work, but didn't know how to get through the door. So I associated with this group in order to get into the schools to do some assemblies. Didn't know who they were, but then as I joined them, they basically said, yeah, we're giving up now. And I was kind of left holding the baby, so to speak. And so at that point, there was about £100 in the bank and a fairly full diary of schools work to get on with. So as well as kind of working for my church, I just started doing this kind of school stuff, and it built up and got a few friends involved. And then over time, we kind of relaunched what was then called Wirral Youth for Christ into a charity that employed about 5 staff. We were seeing about 12,000 young people every year in the work that we were doing, and it was brilliant. And then eventually a guy called Roy Crown, who used to run British Youth for Christ, asked me to consider applying for a national role with YFC. And I took on the role as the director of national ministries, so kind of overseeing all of the mission activity, really, of British Youth for Christ. So that was an exciting time. Loads and loads of fun stuff that we got involved in.
Yeah, that does sound really cool.
Was there a highlight from that?
Multiple highlights. Yeah. So the people I work with were incredible. Ability to just have a go, take risks, like sit in a room and imagine, how can we share Jesus? That's a good idea, let's go and have a go. And it was quite responsive like that. So we're busy filming this podcast now, and it's quite normal to do that, but back in the early 2000s it wasn't normal to be kind of creating film. I don't think YouTube really existed. And so we had the idea to create a film team to help young people to share their own stories of Christian faith. But as I say, it was before film was ever cool or commonplace. Equally, we were probably the first people to employ a fully employed internet evangelist. This was when dial-up internet was, so there was no broadband, there was no iPhones. You were kind of in a chat room with somebody talking about questions of life and faith. And we did an incredible project in Alton Towers, putting a big installation in to tell people about Jesus.
Cool.
I mean, hundreds of things. And so, it was really, really fun time. Hard time, but fun time.
No, that does sound really cool.
I'd have to give it a go.
So after my time with Youth for Christ, I got very involved with Elim. So Regents is connected to Elim. It's part of the Elim Pentecostal Church. And I was not only attending an Elim church, I was an elder in an Elim church. The Elim youth movement at the time, now called Limitless, used to be called Series for God. And in my time with Youth for Christ, I was invited onto that team to start helping to shape the youth ministry within Elim. Nice. So really, that's how my link with Elim started to kind of become stronger and more consolidated. And so after 17 years of youth ministry, kind of could have done it, and probably am still doing it actually in loads of different ways. I decided it was time to kind of hang up my youth ministry boots and start doing something in the wider space. So that's how I ended up here in this role. So,
And I'm sure you can see how that was a preparation almost for the kind of the role that you've stepped into.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of a different chair, same job. So kind of I'm still helping people, share their faith, find creative ways to do that, equipping people, but just doing it in a completely different landscape.
One particular thing about Regents, which is really good, is the fact that we are able to do all these creative things in different areas. There's something for everyone, really, and that's really what I've enjoyed anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think the danger is we can define ministry far too narrowly. So we define ministry as things that happen in a church building, sometimes within a certain time slot in a church building, and this equals ministry. How do I do a service? How do I play my guitar? How do I preach? All really, really important aspects of ministry, but only aspects. And then there are some people who are working, in a hospital setting or a legal practice or anywhere teaching, and somehow they're not doing ministry, which for me is nonsense. We're all called to make Jesus known in the world. Yeah. Some people are called out to equip others for works of service, but everyone's equipped for works of service, and so I have this philosophy of ministry, which is that we all get to play a part. Yes, some are called out, but we all get to play, and we all have a role to play in His kingdom. So, cool.
For those people that might be listening in, who are maybe in a similar position to how you felt back in the day, kind of wearing your faith and doing that, what kind of advice would you give to them in terms of equipping them with how? What would you kind of say to them?
I think I would say get some good people around you. Listen to some good advice. I on that journey I was describing to you, there were a number of people who were hugely encouraging. In fact, sometimes I wanted them to be less encouraging and more critical, because I was looking for people who point out my faults and help me grow.
Sure.
But maybe what I needed at the time was just kind of people telling me how great I was, because it caused me to keep going. I knew I wasn't great, but it kind of gave me that incentive. So find some great people who are going to cheer you on, going to encourage you, going to build you up. I think work hard at the gifts that God's given you, so whatever that is. If you feel you've got a heart in worship leading or politics or economics or preaching, then like work hard at that gift. You wouldn't expect a comedian to stand on the stage and have not worked on their craft. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't listen to them if they had. So why would you expect any Christian to be able to go into their workplace and have not really given it their best and done what they can? So I think, being a Christian isn't an excuse for being lazy with our preparation and that kind of stuff. We need to be excellent at what we do. So find some good people around you to cheer you on, work hard at it, and then so that's the competency piece, and I think that kind of that the character, walk close with Jesus. One of my favourite verses is that kind of verse around Hebrews, since we're surrounded by a great crowd of witnesses to this life of faith, throw off everything that entangles us, the sin that so easily hinders our progress, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. What does it mean to fix your eyes on Jesus? It's not just kind of staring at him or doing your devotions for 5 minutes, but what does Jesus want for my life, and how can I walk closely to him every day?
That's brilliant.
Well, as we sort of look towards the future, this is a new academic year that we're entering into. Would you say there's any goals, not only for Regents, but for you personally as well, within the next 5 years that you would like to achieve, things you'd like to see happen?
One of the brilliant things about being in Regents and the kind of the academic calendar, so to speak, is it's like a bit like a treadmill. Like every September you get to start again. And so one of the things I do enjoy about this role is you can kind of, we made a few mistakes last year, but we get a refresh. That's quite nice. So I see that as a positive. I think one of my prayers is that we can find the people that God is calling, and release them in everything that God's calling them to. Sometimes it gets a little frustrating when we are, so much time, energy, investment goes into preparing courses and programs, and then you get, where are the people who want to kind of benefit from them? So it's that kind of really believing that God's sending the right people for his purpose at his time. For me personally, I've recently completed a course in leadership coaching. So I love coaching in every type of the word, but this is kind of helping leaders to ask questions, understand themselves, and become better at what they do. And so probably over the next 5 years, I'm seeing myself getting into that a little bit more. I'd love to do it in the Christian space, but I'd also love to do it in spaces where maybe God isn't as obvious, so coming alongside health workers or coming alongside business people, and how can we show a kingdom light and narrative on what's going on in their world. So that's something that I'm fairly committed to. And I guess the other thing is I am a parent, and most of my kids have grown up and left home. My youngest son is now 18, which is quite scary. But another goal is kind of helping them become everything that God's called them to be. You know?
Sure.
Yeah, at the different ages and stages that they are. So
Yeah. That's really cool. Just this year coming up, as we start a new academic year, we've had quite a few new students in, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, quite a lot compared to who was here before.
Yeah.
So we've had loads of new campus students and loads of new context students, and a couple have said to us that they actually watched the Regents pod before they came, which is very exciting.
Very encouraging.
But for any future students, would you have anything to say to them if they were thinking about joining?
Yeah, I think I'd say a number of things. Student isn't maybe what you think it is. So there are many ways that you can be a student. That is probably the way I would start. Right. So you can study at Regents by doing a 5-hour online course that will help you with one particular area. Yeah. So don't think in order to be a student, wow, that's like huge, and I have to give up everything, and my life has to completely change. So there are entry level ways to study. Some people then get put off studying because they think, oh, I'm not academic enough. You know, I don't even know what that word academic means. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, or it's used as this like really negative. I'm going to learn loads of academic stuff that's irrelevant. You know, I think, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that studying at Regents, it's fairly accessible. You know, so we are learning some hard stuff, some stuff that stretches your head, but we're doing it in a way that hopefully is made easy to understand and make sense of. So don't be put off if you're feeling like you're inadequate or you wouldn't be able to engage with it. I think the other thing I would say is that there are a number of ways you can study. So actually being in your context where you can minister and study at the same time is a great advantage. Being here on site, then you're part of a community of learning, and that's really fun. And so you can learn in a way that suits your way of life, really, which is quite cool. Cool.
I think what's interesting is obviously you speak about the community at Regents. Now it's slightly different for you to some of the other people that we've had on because they've lived here. But whereas you just live nearby, not quite here 24/7. How do you kind of see what the community's like from your perspective?
It's interesting you say that, Ben, because when I got the job here, we didn't sell our house up north. Well, we were trying to sell it, but 6 months it took to sell. So on the 1st of February 2015, I packed myself and my daughter into one car. Liz packed herself and my youngest son and all our stuff into her car. We left all of our stuff on the Wirral, and we kind of did move in, and we're living on site. So for the first 6 months, we were kind of, this is, not only are we moving house and moving jobs, but we're kind of living in this community. And that was quite interesting, because as you can imagine, you're trying to be the principal, and you're living in this kind of community. And then a couple of years into living here, we had a flood in our house, and had to move back on site for 3 months. so we've had a bit of experience of living here. I think the experience of here, or my understanding of living here, is sometimes it can feel a little bit remote if you haven't got transport. You know, we are up on top of a hill in a beautiful location, but you have to kind of make an effort to engage with people beyond your circle. If you're not careful, you could just live and breathe the same people over and over again. And so my encouragement to someone living on site here in Malvern would be connect with people beyond the campus as well. You know, kind of engage in the real world. Not that here isn't real, but hold those two in tension. I think it's also a brilliant opportunity to make some friends that you're going to have for life, you know. So who are the people who are going to, you know, cheer you on when things get tough? Who are the people you're going to meet and pray with? What are some of the rhythms you're going to set for your life? And what a brilliant opportunity to do that. Some of our students are kind of your age, but some of our students are a lot older as well. And I think young and old have both appreciated it.
It's a brilliant mix, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. One thing I really loved seeing, like just a couple of weeks ago, we walked into the student lounge and everyone's just gathering, praying together. And it's such a really just a good community thing. It's so good.
I think the devotional rhythms are fab as well. So obviously I'm working here, but to have that regular rhythm of, let's meet together on Monday morning and we'll kind of worship and pray together. And
Yeah.
then Tuesday there's like a devotional thought, and Wednesday, but you know, there's a rhythm of kind of connecting with God in community, which is brilliant, you know, and expectation as well sometimes that God's gonna to do things. Yeah.
I tell you what makes a real difference is the tutor groups that we do.
Okay.
I think I personally really appreciate those and see the value in them, and especially like it's a group of people that you'll journey with through the whole course of the 3 years. They're the people that are in my year, and then actually they're not just people in my year, but they're across all the 3 years.
Yeah.
So every year get new people in, and some people go, and it's just another way of kind of having that intimate connection of not just Bible study, but also what's the word, like checking in on each other and accountability and things like that. So
I think what's interesting with the tutor groups is you see the first years come in and they're all a bit quiet, and as a tutor you see the journey that they go on, and so by second year a bit more confidence, by third year they're running the tutor groups. Do you know what I mean? And it just feels it's quite good in the seat that we sit, because you see the growth and development in people over that 3 year period. Although it's all going to go horribly wrong on Monday, because apparently I'm taking your tutor group.
You are taking my tutor group, yeah.
It might not go to plan.
Let's see how that goes.
So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Well, we normally finish up each kind of podcast. I mean, I know you've already said one, but kind of asking the guests kind of their favourite Bible verse, or maybe not their favourite, but one that's kind of been with them recently.
Yeah.
Something to take away.
Let me kind of change the question that you've asked me.
Yeah, go on.
But answer it as well. When I was a little bit younger than you guys are, I was about 16, 17, and I met with some mates. There's 3 of us. We met together every Monday night, and we decided that we wanted to read the Bible together, but we decided we were going to start memorising scripture. And so we kind of set ourselves this challenge, and you can imagine 3 16-year-old lads, it gets a bit competitive, you know, and held each other accountable. And so we created this thing called the alphabet of success. So we picked a word like action for A, or best for B, or whatever it was, and we found a Bible verse that had that word in it, and then we learnt this. So we basically learnt our own alphabet of success.
Sure.
So I could probably quote you 26 different verses that have stuck with me, because they did stick with me. So faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. And I think that is really important to me, because I don't want a faith that is just a belief in something if it doesn't have legs and doesn't have a practical side. But of that list, one of my favourites was D. And it was no discipline, is pleasant at the time but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who've been trained by it. And it's that notion of, actually, I need to put some effort in, but as I discipline myself to become more like Jesus, Jesus kind of transforms me, and that discipline was worth it. You know, the hard work was worth it. So there are a couple of verses. I won't do all 26 because we'll be here all day. So. But my lesson is this: let's learn the Bible. Let's
definitely
lose the art of Bible memorization.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Let me just pray, and then Father, thank you for Dave, Lord, and thank you for everything that he has done here at the college, being the principal, Lord, and everything that he does for the students. But also thank you for the journey that you have taken him on, and the man that you have made him to be, Father. And we just really lift him up to you now, Lord, and pray that you'd just bless him as we go into the rest of this week. Thank you for him coming onto the podcast just to share a little bit about who he is and what you have done through him. In your beautiful name, amen. Amen.
We thank you for watching this podcast episode. Hopefully it's encouraged you. Hopefully it's blessed you. We just pray that if you have any comments or any questions or anything you'd like to ask, please just drop them in our YouTube description comments, or send us a message over on Instagram at regents.pod, and we will answer your questions maybe in a future episode of the podcast. But for now, have a great week, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.